Donald Trump recently has been receiving some flack on foreign policy. Rightfully so in my opinion. However, while some have denounced him, many others have exalted Trump. His rhetoric has inspired quite a few headlines, such as these. In order to further examine and discuss Trump's positions and views, I shall be playing excerpts from an interview he gave a few months back, as well as from one of his more recent campaign rallies. So without further ado, let's start.
Let me ask you about your position on torture. When you and I talked last week, you said that General Hayden was wrong when he said that the military wouldn't follow you on the question of waterboarding and on the killing of terrorist families. In the debate, you said, if I say do it, they're going to do it. You were talking about the military. Then on Friday, you said, I will not order our military to violate those laws.
Well, you never asked me about violating laws, in all fairness. You weren't talking about violating laws.
You are correct, Donald. He didn't explicitly ask about violating laws. Because, I would assume, even you are intelligent enough not to outright say you will break them. However, that does not change the fact that the things you proposed, and are still proposing, do in fact violate the law. Furthermore, once he learns that these actions would clash with the law, he doesn't even actually backstep from the position. Instead, he states his desire to get rid of the laws. Oh, I am sorry. Strengthen and expand them. But let's, if you will, hear it from the horse's mouth directly.
You weren't talking about violating laws. I would say this, look, we have an enemy in the Middle East that's chopping off heads and drowning people in massive steel cages, okay? We have an enemy that doesn't play by the laws. You could say laws and they're laughing. They're laughing at us right now. I would like to strengthen the laws so that we can better compete. You know, it's very tough to beat enemies that don't have any restrictions, all right? We have these massive restrictions. Now, I will always abide by the law, but I would like to have the law expanded.
Trump. As President of the United States, you do not possess the authority to alter, or abolish, international laws at your own digression. Even if you did, just because it has become technically legal, still doesn't make it right. It's the equivalent of you saying as president, I want to abolish all private property. And you somehow push it through the legislature and hand all land over to the state. It's legal, sure. But I would imagine quite a few people would not be happy about it. I'll stop interrupting him for now, and let the rest of the clips run their course.
I would like to have the law expanded. I would like to make... Well, I happen to think that when you're fighting an enemy that chops off heads, I happen to think that we should use something that's stronger than we have right now. Right now, basically, waterboarding is essentially not allowed, as I understand it.
And you'd like it to be if you could expand
I would certainly like it to be at a minimum, to allow that.
Why do you think we don't have those? Why do you think we don't have waterboarding?
Because I think we're weak. I think we've become very weak and ineffective. We are playing by a different set of rules. We are, let me just put it differently. When the ISIS people chop off the heads and they then go back to their homes and they talk and they hear we're talking about waterboarding like it's the worst thing in the world, and they've just drowned 100 people and chopped off 50 heads, they must think we are a little bit on the weak side. We are playing by rules, but they have no rules. It's very hard to win.
Isn't that what separates us from the savages?
No, I don't think so. No, we have to beat the savages.
And therefore throw all rules out?
We have to beat the savages.
By being savages?
No, well, look, you have to play the game the way they're playing the game.
Well, they asked me the question. I said, I'll answer that question. They said, what do you think about waterboarding? I said, I like it a lot, and I don't think it's tough enough. You know, we're living in medieval times. We have to stop it. We have to be so strong. We have to fight so viciously and violently because we're dealing with violent people, vicious people. We have laws. And the laws say you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do, a lot, right? Their laws say you can do anything you want, and the more vicious you are, the better. So we can't do waterboarding which is, it's not the nicest thing, but it's peanuts compared to many alternatives, right? So we can't do waterboarding, but they can do chopping off heads, drowning people in steel cages. They can do whatever they want to do. They probably think we're weak, we're stupid, we don't know what we're doing, we have no leadership. You know, you have to fight fire with fire.
We have to play the game the way they are playing the game. You have to fight fire with fire. Now, you can disagree. I certainly have seen people do it. You can say, oh, that's not what he meant. He didn't mean war crimes. But is that not what he said? To play by their rules? To fight fire with fire? ISIS is committing war crimes, are they not? Like I said, you may disagree, but to deny that too is a valid interpretation, is dishonest. Trump uses very vague and simple language. Which is part of the problem. We should use something that is stronger than we have right now. What does that mean? What does that entail? It is really up to how the individual deciphers what he is saying. Shall we carpet bomb villages occupied by ISIS indiscriminately? After all, our enemy has no regard for human life while pursuing their goals. Why should we? Will our invading coalition, or special forces on the ground, condone the raping of anyone caught in ISIS territory? Are they guilty by association and should be used as a warning to anyone else? All we really have to go on is fight fire with fire. You claim our soldiers are afraid of breaking the Geneva Convention. To that I say, good. What part exactly would you like to allow them to break? The part on respecting the wounded and hospitals? Or perhaps the area concerning the protection of civilians in war zones? Furthermore, why? Why do we need to fight fire with fire? Perhaps if the entirety of Western civilization as we know it was in dire jeopardy of being taken over and destroyed, you would have a case. Although I still don't think so. But ISIS doesn't have the means or capabilities to accomplish that. Approximately 2.5% of worldwide deaths have occurred in Western countries. Leaving out 9/11, that percentage drops to 0.5. Of course, these statistics were before the attacks in Paris, although I don't anticipate it changing the statistics in any significant way. More people die every year in the first world from car accidents. I don't say that to make light on acts of terrorism, only to put it into perspective. But perhaps the great threat to Western civilization you envision isn't militant, but instead takes the form of waves and waves of Muslim migrants. Surely, you say, once we finish off ISIS they will stop flooding into Europe, or go back home. To that I would respond that a more rational approach to those issues could be solved through immigration reforms, instead of undertaking such drastic military action. So then, what is it that demands of us to, in your own words, fight so viciously and violently, or to beat the savages by being savages? What extenuating circumstances calls upon us to do these things? Well, what about that other 99.5 to 97.5 terrorism deaths? Of which ISIS and Boko Haram together commit 51%. You yourself are very keen on mentioning their chopping of heads. Surely we must stop ISIS and put an end to their barbarism. Fighting ISIS on their own level, playing the game the way they are playing the game, however, would do nothing for those people, but bring more death, destruction and bloodshed to their door. You cannot fight fire with fire and expect to get anything but a bigger fire. As such, it is an ineffectual tactic if one of our primary military objectives is the helping and protection of the population from the ire of ISIS. It concerns me greatly how frequently you will lament on about the horrific things ISIS does, but you are so reticent to use this kind of rhetoric and play by their rules. Take the interview you gave in which you said we have to take out their families. You claim they do not care about their own lives, but they do on the lives of their families, so it is the only way to stop them. I wish to conduct a thought experiment. Try and reverse the situation. An Islamic extremist group is planning their strategy. They all conclude that they could never take on the US militarily, the only way is to use guerrilla and fear-based tactics. Suddenly Ahmed has an idea.
We should go after their families.
So they do. They target the residential neighborhoods where military officers' families live. They kidnap members of Congress's relatives. In their fight against the West, these things may be viewed as necessary to them, but we still call it what it is: terrorism. And we too must call it that when proposed by anyone inside or outside our own political system. Trump's speech is construed in such a way to play off of people's emotions. We are weak.
I think we've become very weak. We are weak. I think we're weak. A little bit on the weak side.
Weak.
So in order to be strong, we must fight fire with fire and violate international laws. After all, look how terrible ISIS is. They are chopping off heads.
We have an enemy in the Middle East that's chopping off heads, fighting an enemy that chops off heads. The ISIS people chop off the heads. They've just drowned 100 people and chopped off 50 heads.
They can do chopping off heads.
They're chopping.
Why aren't we fighting by their rules? They are mocking us. How dare they? They think we are stupid. Are you stupid? Or are we going to use something a lot stronger than we have now? Because they are laughing at us.
Could say laws and they're laughing. They're laughing at us right now. They must think we are a little bit on the weak side.
They probably think we're weak, we're stupid, we don't know what we're doing, we have no leadership.
I truly hope Trump doesn't mean what he implies. I really do. But I have seen far too many supporters agree, even when they interpret it in a similar way as me, to not to be concerned and troubled by what he has said and not talk about it. The most severe threat to Western civilization and its values I can see is the increasing number of people prepared to combat terrorism with the very antitheses of what those values are. You cannot fight fire with fire. You have to fight it with water.
We have to beat the savages.
By being savages.
No, well.